I'm going to tell you about the phone call that saved my life. It came from a number I didn't recognize on a Tuesday morning in October, exactly 3 months after I'd met the woman I thought I was going to marry. The voice on the other end belonged to a private investigator named Sarah Chen, and her first words were, "Mr. Hartley, I need you to listen very carefully. Your girlfriend isn't who she says she is, and I believe you're in immediate danger. My name is David Hartley. I'm 68 years old, and until that phone call, I thought I'd finally figured out how to be happy again. Let me back up and explain how I got there, how a man who spent 40 years designing buildings, who raised a daughter, who thought he understood how the world worked, ended up nearly dying at the hands of someone he loved. My wife Margaret died 2 years ago, pancreatic cancer, 6 weeks from diagnosis to the end. We'd been married for 42 years, had just retired, had plans to travel the world together. Cancer doesn't care about your plans. I'm a retired architect. I spent 35 years at Morrison & Associates in Portland, Oregon. I designed commercial buildings, shopping centers, office buildings, a hospital wing. Solid work that stood the test of time. The firm bought me out when I retired at 64. Margaret and I lived in a house I designed on 3 acres outside Portland, worth about $1.8 million. I had retirement accounts totaling $3.2 million, a pension paying $6,000 monthly, and 2 rental properties bringing in another $3,500 a month. We'd been careful with money, lived below our means, invested wisely. We had 1 daughter, Emma, 40, married, living in Boston with 2 kids. She was a professor at MIT. After Margaret died, our Sunday video calls became my lifeline. The 18 months after Margaret's death were dark. I'd never lived alone before. The house felt enormous and empty. I'd wake up reaching for her hand, forgetting for those first seconds that she wasn't there. I tried to stay busy. Workshop projects, golf twice a week, maintaining the properties. But underneath was crushing loneliness. The silence at night was unbearable. Emma worried, called more often. "Dad, you need to get out, find things to do, people to see." I tried a grief support group, volunteered with Habitat for Humanity, but I still felt stuck. Then Emma suggested I take a class, challenge my brain. I found a watercolor painting class at the community college. I was terrible at it, truly awful, but I didn't care. It was relaxing to focus on something besides grief. Diana was in that class. She sat 2 easels over, and I noticed her the first night because she laughed so easily. Mid-50s, blonde hair, warm smile that made everyone turn to look. After the 3rd class, she approached me. "You're David, right? I've noticed you focus on the technical aspects. Are you an architect or engineer?" "Architect. Retired. How did you know?" "I'm an event planner. I can usually spot the people who design buildings." She extended her hand. "Diana Reeves." We went for coffee after class. She asked about my work, my life, why I'd taken the class. I found myself talking more than I had in months, telling her about Margaret, about how I was trying to move forward. She listened, really listened. Then she told me about herself. 56, widowed 5 years ago when her husband Robert died in a car accident. No kids. Moved to Portland from San Diego to be closer to her sister. Worked part-time as an event planner. Everything she said was easy, comfortable, believable. We started having coffee after every class, then dinner one Thursday. Then she invited me to a gallery opening. I found myself looking forward to Tuesdays and Thursdays, planning my week around seeing Diana. 2 months after we met, she kissed me in the parking lot after class. She said, "I hope that was okay. I've been wanting to do that for a while." I kissed her back. More than okay. We started dating. She came to my house for dinner. I visited her small rented apartment. We went to movies, walked in Forest Park, drove to the coast. She made me laugh, filled the silence in my house. 3 months after we met, I asked her to move in. We were having dinner and I just asked, "Diana, would you want to move in here?" She was quiet, then took my hand. "David, I don't want to rush you. You're still grieving Margaret." It made me love her more, that sensitivity. "I'm ready. You make me happy." She smiled, tears in her eyes. Then yes. She moved in 2 weeks later. Didn't bring much. A few boxes of clothes, personal items. She said she'd been keeping things minimal after her husband's death. I helped her unpack into Margaret's old closet. That was in September. For the first few weeks, everything was wonderful. Diana cooked breakfast, worked from home, was there when I got back from errands. It was domestic and comfortable. But by mid-October, small things started bothering me. Nothing I could articulate, just a feeling in my gut that something wasn't quite right. Diana had asked about my finances, but casually, the way couples do when they're blending their lives. We were having breakfast one morning, about 3 weeks after she'd moved in, and she said, "David, I've been thinking, we should probably sit down and talk about finances, bills, that sort of thing. I want to contribute my share to the household." It seemed reasonable. "Sure, I'll pull together some information." "Do you have a financial advisor, someone who helps you manage everything?" She poured more coffee. "I just think, at our age, it's important to have professional help with retirement accounts, estate planning, all of that." "I have an attorney, Frank Morrison. He handled Margaret's estate, helped me with some financial planning." "That's good. You should also think about updating your will, making sure everything's current. Have you done that since Margaret died?" I hadn't. It's on my list. "I have an estate planner I worked with after Robert died. He was wonderful, really helped me navigate everything. I could give you his name if you want." "Maybe. Let me think about it." She smiled. "Of course, no pressure. I just want to make sure you're protected." At the time, it seemed caring, practical. Now I know it was the first move in a long game. The medication thing started around the same time. I take blood pressure medication, have for years. I'm pretty good about remembering to take it, 1 pill every morning with breakfast. But one day, I came downstairs to find Diana had bought me a weekly pill organizer, the kind with separate compartments for each day. "I filled it for you," she said cheerfully. "I noticed you keep forgetting to take your pills, and I thought this might help." I hadn't been forgetting, but I didn't argue. It seemed sweet, considerate, a girlfriend taking care of her boyfriend. She'd filled the organizer with my blood pressure pills, or what I thought were my blood pressure pills. They looked the same, small white tablets. "Thank you," I said, and I took Monday's pill from the organizer. Looking back, that was when the poisoning started, but I didn't know it then. Over the next few weeks, I started feeling off. Nothing dramatic, just tired more easily, slightly short of breath sometimes, occasional dizziness. I attributed it to age, to stress, to the adjustment of living with someone new. Diana noticed, of course, and suggested I see a doctor. "You should get a checkup, David. Make sure everything's okay. At our age, you can't be too careful." I made an appointment with my primary care physician, Dr. Harrison. He ran some tests, checked my blood pressure, listened to my heart. Everything came back normal, maybe blood pressure slightly elevated, but nothing alarming. He adjusted my medication dosage slightly and told me to come back in 3 months. I took the new prescription to the pharmacy, filled it, and brought it home. Diana took the bottle from me. "I'll update your pill organizer with the new dosage." I let her. Why wouldn't I? She was trying to help. What I didn't know was that she never put my actual medication in that organizer. She was giving me something else, something that would weaken my heart over time, make a fatal dose of something else seem like natural progression. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Emma came to visit in early October. She met Diana that evening over dinner. Diana was charming, but Emma was reserved. That night on the deck, Emma asked, "Dad, how much do you know about her? Have you met her sister, her friends?" I realized I hadn't. "Why are you asking?" "You've known her 3 months and she's living here. With your assets, you need to be careful." I felt defensive. She's never asked for money. "That's what worries me. Promise you won't make major financial decisions without talking to me first. Don't add her to accounts or change your will." I should have listened, but I was defensive, annoyed that she was questioning Diana, that she couldn't just be happy for me. I changed the subject, and we didn't talk about it again before she flew back to Boston. After Emma left, I tried to see Diana through my daughter's eyes. Was she moving too fast? Did I really know her that well? But everything seemed fine. Diana was affectionate but not sufficing, helpful but not controlling. She paid for groceries sometimes, insisted on contributing to utilities. She seemed to respect my independence, my space. Still, Emma's questions nagged at me. I realized I hadn't met Diana's sister, didn't know any of her friends, and never been to one of the events she supposedly planned. When I asked about her work, she was always vague. "Oh, it's just a small corporate dinner," or "just another wedding, you know how it is." One evening in late October, about a month after Emma's visit, I suggested we go out to dinner. "Let's go somewhere nice, and maybe we could meet up with your sister afterwards. I'd love to meet her." Diana hesitated, just for a second, but I saw it. "She's actually out of town this week, work trip to Seattle, but yes, we should definitely all get together soon." "What about your friends? Anyone you'd want to have over for dinner?" "Most of my close friends are still in San Diego. I'm still building a social circle here." She smiled. "But I have you. That's enough for me." It should have felt sweet. Instead, it first felt off, like she was deliberately keeping parts of her life separate from me. That night I couldn't sleep. Emma's words echoed. "How much do you know about her?" The next morning, after Diana left, I went through her boxes. I found almost nothing. No photos of Robert, no wedding album, no personal mementos. Just clothes and toiletries, like she'd materialized with no past. I found her driver's license. Diana Reeves, 56, address in Portland. But the card looked too new, too fresh, no wear from use. I took a photo of it. I also found a password-protected laptop I'd never seen her use. That evening, Diana said she was going to visit her sister. She got back from Seattle this afternoon, called and asked if I could come over. "We haven't had much time together lately. Do you mind?" "Of course not. Tell her I say hi." She kissed me and left around 7. I sat in the living room trying to read, trying to watch TV, but my mind kept circling back to that driver's license, to the absence of any real history in her belongings. Around 10, I went to the kitchen for water. That's when I noticed Diana's purse on the counter. She'd forgotten it. I picked it up, thinking I'd put it somewhere safe, and her phone slid out, bouncing on the tile floor. The screen cracked on impact, but the phone unlocked. Face ID or some security feature must have failed with the crack. The screen lit up, showing her text message app. I know I shouldn't have looked. I know it was a violation of privacy, a betrayal of trust, but I looked. The most recent conversation was with someone named Jay. I scrolled up, reading messages from earlier that evening. "Old man's asleep, coming over now. We need to talk about the timeline." Diana's response, "Getting impatient. How much longer do we wait?" Jay, 2 more weeks, max. Documents are almost ready. Then we move." Diana, "His daughter is getting suspicious. She keeps asking questions." Jay, "Handle it. We've come too far to back out now." Diana, "What about the pills? How much longer?" "Another week, maybe 2. Then we switch to the final phase. Make sure you're documenting everything for the insurance claim." Diana, "I am. Everything's in place. Just want this over with." Jay, "Soon. Patience. This one's worth $5 million if we do it right." My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I scrolled further back, finding weeks of conversations, plans, strategies, timelines. References to the old man and the mark and the payout. References to my house, my assets, my retirement accounts. And further back, references to someone named Robert, but not Diana's dead husband, Robert. Messages about how Robert went smoothly and Sacramento was cleaner than Phoenix. I took photos of everything with my own phone. Every conversation, every message, dozens of screenshots. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might have a heart attack right there in the kitchen. Then, I heard Diana's car in the driveway. I put her phone back in her purse exactly where I'd found it and ran upstairs. I got into bed fully clothed, pulled the covers up, and closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. I heard the front door open, heard Diana moving around downstairs, then her footsteps on the stairs. She came into the bedroom, undressed quietly, got into bed beside me. I kept my eyes closed, kept my breathing slow and even, pretending to be asleep. She lay there beside me, and I could feel her warmth, smell her perfume, and I thought about how this woman, this person I'd shared a bed with for weeks, was planning to kill me. For money. For my money. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I lay there until dawn, my mind racing through everything. The quick courtship, the move-in, the interest in my finances, the pill organizer, feeling tired and sick, the messages about pills and timelines and insurance claims. At 8 in the morning, my phone rang. The number I didn't recognize. Diana was in the shower. I could hear the water running. I answered, kept my voice low. Hello? Mr. Hartley, my name is Sarah Chen, and I'm a private investigator, and I need to talk to you about Diana Reeves. I felt like I'd been punched. Who are you? How did you get this number? I'll explain everything, but first I need you to answer a question. Can you speak freely right now? Yes, she's in the shower. Good. Mr. Hartley, has Diana asked you to make any changes to your will, your bank accounts, or your property titles? My mouth dried. She's suggested I meet with an estate planner, someone she knows. There was a pause. Don't do it. Mr. Hartley, Diana Reeves isn't her real name. Her real name is Diane Kruger, and she's done this before, multiple times. I'm calling you because I've been hired by the family of her last victim to track her down, and I found her with you. The shower shut off. I need to go. Wait, one more thing. Check your medication. Check anything she's been giving you regularly. She hung up. Diana came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, smiling. Who was on the phone? Wrong number. I managed to keep my voice steady. Someone looking for a different David. She laughed. Happens to me all the time with Diana's. She went to the closet. Want me to make breakfast? That would be great. She went downstairs. I heard her humming in the kitchen, heard the sound of pans clattering, the coffee maker starting. Normal domestic sounds that now felt sinister, threatening. I went to my nightstand and took out my blood pressure medication bottle, then the pill organizer Diana had filled. The pills looked identical, small white tablets. But Sarah Chen's words echoed, check your medication. I poured the pill organizer pills into a Ziploc bag, careful not to touch them. Then I went to the guest bathroom and filled the organizer with multivitamins, roughly the same size and color, close enough that Diana wouldn't notice. Then I got dressed, trying to keep my hands from shaking. At breakfast, Diana asked about my day. I told her I had some errands to run, nothing special. She nodded, focused on her coffee. I have a client meeting this afternoon, probably won't be home until dinner. Sounds good. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I love you, David. I made myself smile. I love you too. The words felt like ash in my mouth. At 11, I told Diana I was going to the hardware store. She barely looked up from her laptop. Okay, honey, drive safe. I drove to Henderson's Coffee, the place where Diana and I had first really talked 3 months ago. Sarah Chen was waiting in a back booth, just like she'd said she would be. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40. Chinese-American, dressed professionally in dark slacks and a blazer. She had sharp eyes that missed nothing, and a thick folder on the table in front of her. Mr. Hartley, thank you for coming. I know this must be devastating. I sat down heavily. My legs felt weak, my hands still trembling. Tell me everything. She opened the folder, and my life shattered into pieces. Diane Kruger is 48 years old, not 56, Sarah began, pulling out documents. She's never been married, no husband named Robert who died in a car accident. That's a story she uses. She has a partner, a man named Jonathan Ritter. He's 52, former insurance adjuster, lost his license for fraud 8 years ago. They worked together as a team. She laid out photos. Diana, but with dark hair instead of blonde, standing next to a man with sharp features and calculating eyes. They were at a restaurant, leaning close together, clearly intimate. The photo was dated 6 months ago. This is from San Diego, 2 weeks before her last victim died, Sarah continued. Robert Paulson, 71 years old, retired electrical engineer, met Diane at a cooking class. She used the name Diana Mills with him. He was a widower, comfortable financially, lonely. Sound familiar? I couldn't speak. I just nodded. Diane moved in with Robert after 4 months. She convinced him to update his estate plan, introduced him to an estate planner who was actually Jonathan Ritter using a fake identity. They got Robert to sign documents transferring significant assets into a trust they controlled. Then, 6 months after they met, Robert died of what was ruled a heart attack. Ruled? I managed to ask. The autopsy showed unusual levels of certain medications in his system. Digitalis, which is used to treat heart conditions but can be fatal in high doses. Also, traces of other drugs that shouldn't have been there. But it wasn't conclusive enough for criminal charges. The coroner ruled it death by natural causes, possibly accidental medication interaction. But his family didn't believe it. His daughter, Catherine, knew something was wrong. His father had been healthy, active, then suddenly, over a few months, he became weak, tired, complained of dizziness and shortness of breath, all symptoms consistent with digitalis poisoning, by the way. After he died, Catherine discovered that large sums of money had been transferred out of his accounts, about $800,000 in total. By the time she realized what had happened, Diana was gone. Sarah pulled out more documents. That's when Catherine hired me. I'd been tracking her for 18 months. I got a break 3 months ago when I identified Jonathan Ritter as her partner. I'd been monitoring his known associates, his email, his phone records. Not legally admissible in court, but enough to keep tabs on him. When he booked a flight to Portland and started researching property records here, I knew Diana had found a new target. I came to Portland, started surveillance on Ritter, and eventually spotted him meeting with Diana. Then I followed her to you. She pulled out photos of Diana, of me, of us together, dated from a month ago, 2 months ago. She'd been watching, documenting. Why didn't you call me sooner? I needed to build a case first. I needed enough evidence that when I approached you, you'd believe me, and more importantly, that we could use to prosecute them. Diana and Jonathan are smart. They're careful. They've avoided criminal charges 5 times because they leave very little evidence. I've been documenting everything, their meetings, their communication patterns, Diana's movements, but I needed one more piece. What piece? She pulled out my phone photos, the ones I'd taken of Diana's text messages. These. I was monitoring Diana's phone remotely, saw the messages you photographed last night. When I saw that you'd discovered them, that you'd taken screenshots, I knew I had to contact you immediately. Those messages are evidence of conspiracy. Combined with everything else I have, we can finally build a criminal case. I pulled out the baggie of pills from my pocket. She's been giving me these. They're supposed to be blood pressure medication. Sarah's expression darkened. We need to get these tested immediately. I have a contact at a private lab. But Mr. Hartley, if these are what I think they are, you've been ingesting poison for the past month. The reality of it hit me then. Not just that Diana was a con artist, not just that she wanted my money, but that she'd been actively trying to kill me. Slowly, methodically, over weeks. I felt sick. What do I do now? I asked. Sarah leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go home and act completely normal. You're going to take the vitamins you substituted, not whatever Diana gives you. I'm going to get these pills tested. Results should be back in 48 hours. Meanwhile, I'm going to contact the Portland police, specifically a detective I know who handles elder abuse cases. We're going to prepare a stink operation. A sting? We need to catch them in the act. The text messages are evidence of planning, but we need more. We need them to incriminate themselves on record. I want to equip you with a wire, install surveillance equipment in your house, and let them make their move. The messages mentioned 2 weeks. That means they're close to executing their plan. You want me to stay there? With her? Knowing what she's planning? I know it's terrifying, but Mr. Hartley, this is the only way to stop them. If we arrest them now based just on the texts and my circumstantial evidence, they'll get good lawyers. They'll claim the messages were taken out of context, that they were joking, that I'm harassing them. We need irrefutable evidence. We need them to reveal their plan in detail, on camera with audio. My mind was reeling. What if they try something before you're ready? I'll have a team watching you 24/7, plainclothes officers in an unmarked van on your street, undercover operatives posing as neighbors. The moment they try anything, we move in. You'll never be truly alone or unprotected. I thought about it. The idea of going back to that house, sleeping beside Diana, pretending everything was normal, was terrifying. But the idea of her getting away, of doing this to someone else, was worse. "Okay," I said. "What do I need to do?" Over the next 2 hours, Sarah laid out the plan in detail. She introduced me to Detective Maria Garcia, a tough, professional woman in her 40s who specialized in financial crimes and elder abuse. Detective Garcia explained the legal aspects, what evidence we needed, what charges they could file, and what my role would be in the investigation and potential trial. We agreed on a timeline. I would go home, act normal for the next few days while Sarah's team set up surveillance and while we waited for the lab results on the pills. In 3 days, on Friday evening, we would execute the sting. Sarah had already analyzed Diana's patterns and Jonathan's schedule. Based on the text messages, they were planning to move soon. We would give them the opportunity, but on our terms. I pulled out the baggie of pills from my pocket. "She's been giving me these. They're supposed to be blood pressure medication." Sarah's expression darkened. "We need to get these tested immediately. I have a contact at a private lab. But Mr. Hartley, if these are what I think they are, you've been ingesting poison for the past month." The reality of it hit me then. Not just that Diana was a con artist, not just that she wanted my money, but that she'd been actively trying to kill me. Slowly, methodically, over weeks. I felt sick. "What do I do now?" I asked. Sarah leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go home and act completely normal. You're going to take the vitamins you substituted, not whatever Diana gives you. I'm going to get these pills tested. Results should be back in 48 hours. Meanwhile, I'm going to contact the Portland police, specifically a detective I know who handles elder abuse cases. We're going to prepare a sting operation." "A sting?" "We need to catch them in the act. The text messages are evidence of planning, but we need more. We need them to incriminate themselves on record. I want to equip you with a wire, install surveillance equipment in your house, and let them make their move." The messages mentioned 2 weeks. That means they're close to executing their plan. "You want me to stay there? With her? Knowing what she's planning?" "I know it's terrifying, but Mr. Hartley, this is the only way to stop them. If we arrest them now based just on the texts and my circumstantial evidence, they'll get good lawyers. They'll claim the messages were taken out of context, that they were joking, that I'm harassing them. We need irrefutable evidence. We need them to reveal their plan in detail, on camera, with audio." My mind was reeling. What if they try something before you're ready? "I'll have a team watching you 24/7, plainclothes officers in an unmarked van on your street, undercover operatives posing as neighbors. The moment they try anything, we move in. You'll never be truly alone or unprotected." I thought about it. The idea of going back to that house, sleeping beside Diana, pretending everything was normal, was terrifying. But the idea of her getting away, of doing this to someone else, was worse. "Okay," I said. "What do I need to do?" Over the next 2 hours, Sarah laid out the plan in detail. She introduced me to Detective Maria Garcia, a tough, professional woman in her 40s who specialized in financial crimes and elder abuse. Detective Garcia explained the legal aspects, what evidence we needed, what charges they could file, and what my role would be in the investigation and potential trial. We agreed on a timeline. I would go home, act normal for the next few days while Sarah's team set up surveillance and while we waited for the lab results on the pills. In 3 days, on Friday evening, we would execute the sting. Sarah had already analyzed Diana's patterns and Jonathan's schedule. Based on the text messages, they were planning to move soon. We would give them the opportunity, but on our terms. I went home wearing a tiny wire taped to my chest. It was so small I could barely feel it, but knowing it was there made me hyper-aware of every word I said. Diana was at the kitchen table on her laptop when I walked in. "Hey, honey, how are your errands?" "Fine, just the usual stuff." I kissed her cheek, feeling like a stranger in my own body. "What are you working on?" "Just finalizing some details for a wedding next month." She smiled up at me. "Want some lunch?" "Sure, that'd be great." We made sandwiches together, and I watched her move around my kitchen, using my knives, my cutting board, touching everything with hands that had been planning my death. It took everything I had to keep my expression neutral, to not flinch away from her touch. That afternoon, while Diana was supposedly meeting with a client, Sarah's team came to install surveillance equipment. They were fast and professional. In less than 2 hours, they had cameras and microphones hidden throughout the house. Tiny devices in smoke detectors, picture frames, the living room clock, even the bedroom lamp. They assured me the cameras were motion-activated and angle-specific, preserving my privacy while capturing any interactions with Diana or Jonathan. The pills came back from the lab that evening. Sarah called me with the results while I was in the bathroom, running water to cover my voice. Digitalis, she said. Every single pill in that organizer was digitalis, not blood pressure medication. The dosage was calculated to build up slowly over time, weakening your heart. Another 2 weeks of this, and you would have been seriously ill, weak enough that a large dose of insulin or another drug could have caused a heart attack that looked natural. Insulin, she said. That's typically Jonathan's method in the final stage. He has access to pharmaceutical supplies through his old insurance contacts. An insulin injection causes hypoglycemic shock, which can trigger cardiac arrest. In an elderly person with existing heart problems, it looks like natural causes. I felt dizzy. How close was I? Based on the digitalis levels that would be in your system after a month of daily doses, you were probably 2 weeks away from being vulnerable enough for the final move. The text messages mentioning 2 weeks were accurate. Mr. Hartley, if you hadn't found those messages, if I hadn't called when I did... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. I went through the motions of normal domestic life with Diana, all while wearing a wire, knowing every word was being recorded, knowing surveillance teams were watching. Diana made dinner. We watched TV. We went to bed. Everything looked normal on the surface, but underneath, I was screaming. Emma called on Wednesday for our regular check-in. Diana was in the shower, so I could talk freely for a few minutes. "Dad, you sound strange. Is everything okay?" "Not really, honey, but it will be. I promise I'll call you this weekend and explain everything." "Dad, you're scaring me." "I know. I'm sorry. Just trust me. Everything's going to be okay." After I hung up, I felt guilty for worrying her, but I couldn't tell her what was happening. Not yet. Not until it was over. Thursday evening, Diana got a phone call. She answered it in the living room while I was reading in my study, but with the surveillance equipment, every word was captured. "Hey, yeah, I know. No, he's fine. Completely unsuspicious. The pills are working. He's been tired, dizzy a few times. I mentioned seeing a doctor and he went, but everything came back normal, just like we expected. Tomorrow night, he'll take his evening pills. I'll make sure he's relaxed, comfortable. You come over around 10. Yes, I have it prepared, same as last time. Once it's done, I'll call 911, play the grieving girlfriend. Heart attack, you know how it is with elderly men. No, I'm sure. We're clear. Love you too." She hung up. Detective Garcia, listening from the surveillance van, called Sarah. Sarah called me. I was in the bathroom, water running. "Did you hear?" "Every word. We have her on tape discussing your murder. Mr. Hartley, tomorrow night is when they're planning to make their move. Are you ready?" Was I ready to face the woman I'd thought I loved, knowing she was planning to kill me in less than 24 hours? No, but I didn't have a choice. I'm ready. Friday morning, Diana was extra attentive. She made my favorite breakfast, suggested we spend the day together, maybe drive out to the coast like we had early in our relationship. I feel like we've both been busy lately. I miss spending time with you. It was all performance, I knew now. Building trust, making sure I was unsuspicious, setting up the scene. The caring girlfriend devoted to her elderly boyfriend who would be devastated when he suddenly died of a heart attack that evening. I played along. That sounds wonderful. We drove to Cannon Beach, walked on the sand, had lunch at a seafood restaurant overlooking the ocean. Diana held my hand, laughed at my jokes, took selfies of us together. I wondered if she practiced this in a mirror, this perfect imitation of love and care. Or had she done it so many times that it came naturally now? On the drive home, she suggested we pick up wine. "Let's make it a nice evening. I'll cook something special." Perfect. We got home around 6. While Diana cooked dinner, my favorite, pot roast with vegetables, I excused myself to the bathroom. Sarah had texted me detailed instructions. At 7:30, I was to take the pills from the organizer as usual, but palm them and spit them out later. At 8 o'clock, I was to suggest we open the wine. By 9 o'clock, I was to say I was tired, ready for bed. The team would be in position by 9:30. Jonathan would arrive around 10, just like Diana had said on the phone. Dinner was excruciating. Diana was charming, chatty, affectionate. We ate the pot roast, drank wine, and I watched her performance, knowing that in a few hours she was planning to inject me with insulin and watch me die. At 7:30, right on schedule, Diana brought me my pill organizer. "Don't forget your medication, honey." I took the pills, actually vitamins, with water, made a show of swallowing them. Diana watched, satisfied, then cleared the dishes. At 8 o'clock, we opened another bottle of wine, sat on the couch watching a movie. Diana snuggled against me, her head on my shoulder, and I had to fight not to push her away, not to scream at her. At 9 o'clock, I yawned. "I'm exhausted, all that walking on the beach today." "Poor baby, let's go to bed." She smiled at me, and it was so warm, so convincing. If I didn't know what I knew, I would have believed every second of it. We went upstairs. I got ready for bed, brushed my teeth, put on pajamas. All the while, my heart was racing. This was it, the final act. Diana came to bed, still dressed. "I'm not tired yet. Think I'll read for a bit." "Okay." I lay down, closed my eyes, tried to steady my breathing. The plan was for me to pretend to fall asleep. Then, when Jonathan arrived, Diana would let him in, they would discuss the plan where the surveillance equipment could capture it, and then, right before they tried to administer the insulin, the police would move in. But what if something went wrong? What if they moved faster than expected? What if the police were too slow? I forced myself to breathe normally, slowly, like I was drifting off to sleep. After about 20 minutes, Diana got up carefully, moving quietly. I heard her go downstairs. Through the surveillance equipment, the team could see and hear everything. Diana pacing in the living room, checking her phone, looking out the window. At 10:05, there was a soft knock at the back door. Diana let Jonathan in. He was exactly as he looked in the photos. Sharp features, cold eyes, the appearance of someone who'd made ruthless calculations into an art form. He kissed Diana. Not a quick peck, but a long, passionate kiss. "How is he?" "Asleep. Took the pills right on schedule, had plenty of wine. He'll be under deeply by now." "Good. Let me see him." They came upstairs together. I kept my breathing slow and steady, eyes closed. I felt them standing over me, looking down at my presumably sleeping form. "Perfect," Jonathan said softly. "He won't feel a thing, just like the others." "Are you sure the dosage is right?" Diana asked. "I don't want another Phoenix situation where it took too long." "It's right. This amount will cause hypoglycemic shock within 20 minutes. His heart is already weakened from the digitalis. It'll look like he went to sleep and didn't wake up. Classic cardiac arrest in an elderly male with existing heart issues." "What about the autopsy?" "Insulin breaks down quickly in the body. Unless they're specifically looking for it within hours, they won't find it. And they won't be looking for it because there's no reason to suspect anything. You're the grieving girlfriend. You found him unresponsive in the morning. You called 911. By the time they get here and determine he's dead, the insulin will be undetectable." God, I'll be glad when this is over. He's sweet, but it's exhausting pretending to care. 2 hours, babe. 2 hours and you're $5 million richer. We're $5 million. Right, we, of course. Jonathan pulled something from his jacket. In the dim light, I couldn't see what, but I knew. The insulin. Diana grabbed his hand. "Wait, let me say goodbye." "Diana, just give me a second." She leaned over me and I felt her lips on my forehead. A gentle, almost tender kiss. "You were one of the good ones, David. I'm sorry it had to be this way." It took everything I had not to react, not to open my eyes and confront her, but I held still. "Okay," she said, stepping back. "I'm ready." That's when every light in the house blazed on at once. The bedroom door burst open. "Police! Freeze! Don't move!" 5 officers flooded into my bedroom, weapons drawn. Detective Garcia led them, moving with swift precision. "Jonathan Ritter, Diane Kruger, you're both under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, fraud, and elder abuse." Diana screamed, tried to bolt for the door. An officer grabbed her, spun her around, pressed her against the wall. "Hands behind your back!" Jonathan didn't move. He still had the syringe in his hand. An officer lunged for him, knocked it away, forced him to the ground. I sat up in bed, my hands shaking. Detective Garcia came to my side. "You okay, Mr. Hartley?" I nodded, but I wasn't sure it was true. The officer who'd knocked the syringe away bagged it carefully. "Detective, this is enough insulin to kill 3 people. Get it to the lab. I want confirmation of contents and dosage." Detective Garcia turned back to Diana, who was now in handcuffs, crying hysterically. "This is insane! David, tell them! Tell them we're in love! Tell them this is all a mistake!" I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing. No love, no anger, just a cold emptiness. "Your name is Diane Kruger. You're 48 years old, not 56. You've killed at least 3 men before me, maybe more. And tonight, you tried to make me number 4. Her face changed then. The tears stopped. The mask dropped. She looked at me with pure hatred. "You bastard! You knew! When did you know?" "Does it matter?" Jonathan spoke from where he lay on the floor, an officer's knee in his back. "This is entrapment. Our lawyers will tear this apart." Detective Garcia smiled. "Actually, Mr. Ritter, we have audio and video of you discussing Mr. Hartley's murder in detail. We have text messages between you and Miss Kruger planning the crime. We have evidence of financial fraud, forged documents, and attempted poisoning. And we have the insulin you were literally holding in your hand about to inject into your victim. Your lawyers can try whatever they want, but you're done." Sarah Chen appeared in the doorway. She looked at me, nodded once. "It's over, Mr. Hartley. You're safe." They took Diana and Jonathan away. I watched from my bedroom window as they were put in separate police cars, read their rights, driven away. The surveillance van pulled up, and technical specialists came in to collect the equipment, preserve the recordings, document everything for evidence. Detective Garcia stayed with me for the next hour, taking my formal statement, walking me through what would happen next. Charges would be filed, there would be arraignments, possibly a trial. I would need to testify. "They'll take a plea deal," Sarah said. She'd stayed too, sitting with us at my kitchen table. "Once they see the evidence we have, once their lawyers explain how thoroughly they're screwed, they'll deal. Diana's looking at life without parole on the murder charges. Jonathan might get 25 to 30 if he testifies against her." "What about the other victims? Robert Paulson, Martin Webb, Gerald Thompson?" "The investigation will reopen all those cases now that we have Diana and Jonathan in custody. With Jonathan's testimony, and trust me, he'll turn on her to save himself, we may be able to build cases for those deaths. At minimum, the families will get answers. They'll know what really happened." It was after midnight when everyone finally left. I was alone in my house for the first time in months, truly alone. I sat in the living room, in the chair that Diana had sat so many times, and tried to process what had happened. I'd almost died. In this house, in my bedroom, injected with insulin by 2 people who targeted me, manipulated me, poisoned me for weeks, and then calmly planned to kill me for my money. If I hadn't dropped that phone, if I hadn't seen those messages, if Sarah Chen hadn't called when she did, I would be dead. And Emma would have spent months, maybe years, trying to figure out what happened, just like Robert Paulson's daughter had. I couldn't stay in that house alone that night. I drove to a hotel downtown, checked in under a false name, and finally, in an anonymous room with good locks and a door chain, I broke down. I cried for hours, for my stupidity, for my loneliness, for Margaret, for the life I'd almost lost, for everything. At 3 a.m., I called Emma. She answered on the second ring, voice thick with sleep. "Dad? What's wrong?" "Emma, I need to tell you something, and I need you to not interrupt until I'm done, okay?" "Okay? You're scaring me." I told her everything. The painting class, Diana, moving in too fast, Emma's concerns that I'd dismissed, the text messages, Sarah Chen, the investigation, the sting operation, tonight, all of it. By the time I finished, Emma was crying. "Oh my God, Dad. Oh my God. I'm getting on the next flight. I'm coming right now." "Emma, it's 3 in the morning. There are no flights." "Then I'm getting on the first one. I'll be there by this afternoon. Don't argue with me." I didn't. I needed my daughter. I needed family, someone real, someone I could trust. Emma arrived at 2 p.m. the next day. I picked her up from the airport, and she hugged me so tightly I couldn't breathe. "I almost lost you," she kept saying. "I almost lost you." We went to the hotel. I couldn't go back to the house yet, couldn't face those rooms where Diana had lived, where she'd plotted my death. Emma stayed with me for a week, handling phone calls, dealing with lawyers, making sure I ate and slept. The legal process moved faster than I expected. With the overwhelming evidence, the surveillance video, the audio recordings, the text messages, the pills testing positive for digitalis, the insulin syringe, Diana and Jonathan's lawyers advised them to take plea deals. Jonathan broke first, agreeing to 25 years for his testimony. Over several days, he described their 12-year operation, how Diana would target wealthy widowers, build trust, gain financial access, how he'd pose as an estate planner, create fraudulent documents, how they'd poison victims slowly with digitalis, then administer fatal insulin when the victim was weak enough. He estimated 7 kills total. Martin Webb, Gerald Thompson, Robert Paulson, and 4 others dating back to 2012. Victims in Las Vegas, Scottsdale, San Francisco, and Austin, all ruled natural deaths. They'd stolen over $15 million. The judge gave Jonathan 25 years for his testimony against Diana. Diana went to trial, pleaded not guilty, claimed Jonathan was the mastermind. But the evidence was overwhelming. The surveillance footage of her discussing my murder, Jonathan's testimony about all 7 killings, the video from my bedroom where she kissed my forehead and gave Jonathan the signal to give Jonathan the insulin. The jury deliberated 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Life without parole. Diana screamed when sentenced, cursed me, claimed I'd ruined her life by refusing to just die peacefully. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, just emptiness. The investigation into the 4 other victims took another year. With Jonathan's testimony and Diana's records, they'd kept meticulous notes, believing they'd never be caught. Authorities in Arizona, Nevada, California, and Texas reopened cases. 3 of the families got closure, got answers about what really happened to their loved ones. One case couldn't be conclusively proven due to lack of evidence. I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore. Couldn't sleep in the bedroom where Diana had pretended to love me while planning my murder. Couldn't cook in the kitchen where she'd poisoned my pills. Couldn't sit on the deck where we'd had that conversation about her moving in. Every room held memories that were now tainted, false, disturbing. I bought a smaller condo downtown, modern and secure, with good locks and 24-hour doorman. It was a fresh start, a clean slate, a place with no memories of Diana. The money Diana and Jonathan had stolen from their previous victims was mostly unrecoverable. They'd moved it through so many offshore accounts, shell corporations, and cryptocurrency exchanges that tracking it was nearly impossible. But I helped fund the investigations anyway, paid for forensic accountants, hired private investigators to trace the money. Some of the families recovered small amounts, maybe 10% of what was stolen. It wasn't much, but it was something. Robert Paulson's daughter, Catherine, came to Portland to meet me after the trial ended. We sat in my new condo's living room and talked for hours about our experiences, about the woman who targeted our fathers, about the grief and anger and confusion we both felt. "At least now I know," she said. "For 2 years I wondered if I was crazy, if I was imagining things, if my dad really had just died naturally and I was concocting conspiracy theories because I couldn't accept it. Now I know I was right. He was murdered. That's terrible, but at least it's real. At least I'm not crazy." I understood that completely. A year after the trial, I started volunteering with an organization called Senior Safety Alliance, a nonprofit that works to prevent elder abuse, financial exploitation, and scams targeting older adults. I give talks at senior centers, community groups, retirement communities, anywhere that will have me. I tell my story, the whole thing, from the watercolor class to the surveillance sting to the trial. I tell them about the red flags I missed, the quick courtship, the reluctance to introduce me to friends or family, the immediate move to financial discussions, the insistence on meeting her estate planner, the text messages manipulation. I tell them what those texts said, what Diana and Jonathan planned, how close I came to being victim number 8. If something feels wrong, trust that feeling. If someone is rushing you into a relationship, slow down. If a new romantic partner is immediately interested in your finances, be suspicious. If they want to isolate you from family and friends, that's a huge red flag. If they try to control your medication or suggest you see their doctors or lawyers instead of your own, stop. Just stop. I hand out information sheets with warning signs, contact numbers for adult protective services, phone numbers for organizations that help elder abuse victims. I answer questions, sometimes for hours after my formal talk ends. People want to share their own stories, their concerns about their parents, their questions about how to protect themselves. That's when I realized why I was doing this. Every person I helped, every potential victim I protected, was honoring the luck I'd had. Robert Paulson didn't get saved. Martin Webb didn't get a warning call. Gerald Thompson didn't have a private investigator watching out for him. But I did, and I survived. And now I could use that survival to help others. I'm in therapy twice a month. Dr. Patricia Walsh tells me regularly, "You were targeted by professional predators. They chose you because you were vulnerable, grieving, wanting companionship. That's not a character flaw. That's being human." I'm slowly learning to believe her. Emma visits more often now. My grandchildren know some of what happened, age-appropriate versions. Jason, now 10, asked if the bad person went to jail. When I said yes, for life, he seemed satisfied. Good. Bad people should go to jail. I've slowly restarted my social life, though much more cautiously. I joined a seniors activity group, made friends with no pressure or rush. I focus on my volunteer work, my talks, helping others. I spend time with Emma and her family. I've started playing golf again with the guys from the firm. I think about Margaret often. She would have been angry at my carelessness, but she'd also understand. "You have too much love to give, David," she told me once. "That's your blessing and your curse." She was right. I'm 70 now. 4 years since Diana targeted me. I'm alive, which is more than Robert Paulson, Martin Webb, and the others can say. I'm changed, more cautious, slower to trust. Diana took some essential optimism from me, but I recognize it as necessary, protective, the price of survival. When I give talks, people ask me if I regret meeting Diana. If I'd never gone to that class, I'd avoid the terror, poisoning, near death. But I wouldn't have this purpose, this drive to help others. I regret the pain, I tell them, but I don't regret surviving, and I don't regret using that survival to protect others. Last month, Diana's lawyer contacted me. She wanted to apologize, had found religion in prison, wanted to make amends. I threw the letter away. There are betrayals that can't be apologized away. Diana tried to kill me, poisoned me for weeks, kissed my forehead seconds before signaling Jonathan to inject fatal insulin. She did that to 6 others, and would have if not caught.